Hello, this is Joe Trahan, welcoming you to the All Me podcast from the Taylor Hooten Foundation, whose mission is to enlighten the world to the truths about appearance and performance-enhancing substances. As the national leader on this subject, they communicate their educational messages through various methods, including this podcast. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the All Me podcast. This is Don Hooten Jr., and today I'll be your host. We started this podcast to help raise awareness about all things appearance and performance-enhancing substances. We've been able to get some of the world's leading experts on anabolic steroids, dietary supplements, energy drinks, and even nutrition. Today's episode is going to be one where a mom is going to share a story about her son who lost his life as a result of using a dietary supplement. Leanne Sparling, who has been a dear friend of our family for years, received a phone call in the early morning hours of June 1st, 2011. This phone call was notifying her that her son Michael, who was serving in the military at Fort Bliss, had collapsed during a training exercise because he was having a heart attack. It's a heartbreaking story, but one I hope you will take a lot of information from and why it's so important to do your research prior to consuming any dietary supplement. We can't thank her and her family enough for their strength and courage to stand up and share her son's story. Michael Sparling's story is helping save lives around the world. We want to take a moment and thank all of those who have served and are currently serving in our military. Your work is so valuable to us and those around the world. Please consider making a donation to the Taylor Hooten Foundation so that we can continue to deliver our important message around the world. It's time to bring Leanne onto the show and have her share her story. Leanne, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a real pleasure. Our paths in life crossed years ago, and sadly, the reason that our lives crossed is due to tragedy. And you and your husband have had the courage to share your son's story early on, which has helped impact so many lives. In fact, I'll never forget when you and Cody had recorded a video for us that shared your son Michael's story. And we've run it in all of our education programs for nearly a decade. So I'll also be sure to place a link to that video as well in our show notes. If you're okay with it, I'd really like to start talking about you and your family and kind of giving our listeners an opportunity to learn more about you guys.
Okay.
So tell us where you're from and what do you and your husband do for a living? And how many kids do you have?
So we live here in California, just on the outskirts of Sacramento. And Mike is a real estate agent, but he also part-time, he drives a school bus. That's kind of part of his ministry. Okay. So he will do field trips for sporting events, and that's his way of being able to talk about Michael and what happened, because now he's in front of a coach and talking, with the kids on the bus and everything. And so I myself help him in real estate, but I also work for the state of California. There's always challenges in any job, but I have truly enjoyed working there. Mike and I also have 4 children. Michael was our oldest son, and actually he would have turned 33 this year. We have 3 boys and 1 girl. Back in about 2005, the boys were all growing up, and we felt God calling us to adopt. And so we chose to go to China to adopt our little girl. And it's been amazing ever since.
I love following all y'all's stories and everything on Facebook. It's really cool.
Thank you.
So I want to shift gears and I want to focus on talking about your son, Michael, because that's where your story really begins. And it's a story that people need to hear. They need to understand what happened with Michael, and it's going to shed a whole light on dietary supplements that we've really never shared on the All Me podcast before. So it's going to be some great information. But why don't you tell us more about Michael? What was he like, and what activities did he like to do when he was growing up? And tell us about his personality.
Well, I was talking with the kids last night, and I would ask them, what's one word that would describe Michael in your eyes? And they immediately said amazing, funny, loyal, proud, loving. And that kind of summed up who he was. When he was 3.5 is when we had Cody.
Okay.
And he has always been the doting big brother. So as he was growing up, he loved, even as a toddler, young boy, he loved working with his dad on cars. He loved all sports. He played soccer for about 11 years. He played, the Pee-wee football. He snowboarded. He loved paintballing. He was a skateboarder. He did BMX racing. He was really into martial arts. And he just loved doing a lot of things outside. And he loved, being with his friends and being with family and just having fun. That was Michael.
Yeah.
When you wanted to have fun, you looked and you saw Michael, because he was fun. He loved doing all of these things.
It sounds very much like me when I was growing up. I loved playing all sorts of sports and activities. I wish I would have got into snowboarding when I was a lot younger. I do like skiing every now and then, but as I've gotten older, they say, snowboarding's something you want to really master at a young age, because it hurts a lot more as you get older when you fall. And so I never had a chance to do that, but it definitely be something I would like to do. And, like Cody and Michael, my younger brother, Taylor, we were about 6 years apart, 5.5 years apart. And he was one of my best friends. We were super close. And Michael sounds very, very much like Taylor, and the way your kids describe in the one word is amazing, funny, loyal, and a good friend, which is really, really neat to hear and talk about. So at some point, as Michael gets older, he approaches you guys and wants to join the military, which has to make you really proud as a parent. But I can imagine, and I'm a new parent, but how scary that might be. And I want you to share that story. But before you do, I also want to take a moment just to thank all of those who have served our country. You're very important to us, and thank you for your service. When does Michael come to you and tell you that he wants to join the military? And as a parent, what were your feelings towards that?
Well, here's the thing. Michael actually came to me in high school and said, Mom, when I graduate, I want to join the military. And it sent me into a tailspin. I didn't see that for our life. I love our military. My dad served, my grandfather served, Mike's dad, Mike's grandfather, they all served. But I didn't think I could be that mom. I was afraid that I could not be that mom. And I told him that. And he decided not to do it. And so as the years went on, he was in high school at that time. He came to me again when he was 21. And he said, Mom, I understand your feelings, but this is something that I really want to do and that I want for my life. And I understand how you feel, but I still want to do it. And at that point, he was older, and I was okay with it. I was like, okay, if this is what you want, I'm going to support you 100%. I even went down with him to the local agency, and he did all of his paperwork right there, and I was with him that whole entire time. And so we are very proud of the decision that he made. He is a very proud American, and we just couldn't be any prouder of him.
I know it takes a super special person to join the military. It's always something that has fascinated me. Grandfathers and all that have served in the military. I've got friends that have served in the military. It's so important, but I just couldn't imagine that as, obviously as a parent, and, but I know how proud you guys were of him. What do you think inspired him from being such a young age? That's a big decision in high school to say, hey, I want to graduate high school and I want to go serve in the U.S. military.
Well, it actually started when he was in junior high.
Okay.
And that is when 9/11 happened. And he was getting ready to leave for school when, my phone was blowing up, turn the news on. And he sat there and he watched what was happening. And within himself, he had decided that at that point that he wanted to be on the front lines. And all through high school, he took all military classes as much as possible. Military history. He took military history twice, and I'm like, you don't need that twice, but he took it twice. He was that interested in it. And so that's really what started his journey on wanting to be in the military.
Wow. I'm not going to lie. I have chills going through my whole body. What an incredible story. So he's 21 years old. And where does he end up going for basic training?
So he goes to Fort Benning, Georgia for his training. Okay. And that's where we went to watch him graduate.
Okay.
And he graduated on his 22nd birthday. And we were able, Mike and I and my nephew and my dad actually went out for his graduation. Mm-hmm. And we were able to go to the museum. And there was never a prouder moment than when one of his drill sergeants walked up to him, shook his hand, and said, "Son, you will do great things."
Wow. Again, just chills.
Yeah, it was just amazing. It was amazing to hear someone else talk to him like that with such respect. And it just really, warmed our hearts.
So after basic training, I guess you go somewhere and you're stationed. Where does he go after he leaves Georgia?
He comes home for a little while. It was just a couple of weeks. And then he flew out of Sacramento on May 11th was the last time we saw him. And he went to Fort Bliss, Texas. Fort Bliss, Texas. Okay.
Just down south. Okay. South where we are here recording in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Okay. So, and then I guess, so the time at home, is that just time to be spent with family, to get rested before, you start duty?
Yes. So they had informed him that come August, he was going to be shipped overseas. That's what they had said, to start preparing for that. And then he was going to be able to come home one more time in the first part of August before he was going to be shipped out for however long it was going to be. And so he was able to visit family and visit friends while he was here. And then, he left on that morning.
Okay. So not long after he leaves, you receive a phone call that's going to change you and your family's life forever. And that call, if my notes are correct and everything, that we've discussed over the years, that call came the morning of June 1st. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Can you tell us about the call that you received on June 1st? Rather, I guess the voicemail that you first received, that you had to return a call from Michael's commanding officer.
Yeah, well, it was early in the morning, and I had left my phone out in the kitchen, and and if you don't know this already, but you will know it as your little guy grows up, you get these feelings, that something could be wrong. And I was getting ready, and my gut was saying something's wrong. And I even went and checked on the other kids, and they were all sleeping. Everything was fine. Mike had already left for work at the time, and I'm like, I'm gonna go get my phone and call Mike to make sure he was okay. And I noticed that it was a missed call, and it said Fort Bliss. I went to I missed a call from Michael, but why isn't he calling me from his cell phone? Yeah. And I just thought that was kind of weird, and there was a voicemail, and so I listened to it, and the voice on the line said, Miss Sparling, this is, Captain, and I need you to call me right away. Your son has collapsed. Please call this number, as soon as possible. So I call the number, and he answers the phone, and his voice is I could tell something had happened. Mm-hmm. And he said, "I need you to talk to the commander of the hospital concerning your son. He has collapsed." And, I'm thinking, okay, so maybe he fell, hurt his ankle, something like that. I couldn't understand when he was telling me what was happening. So the commander got on the phone, and he said, "Your son has suffered a heart attack." Now, when someone says your son has suffered a heart attack, so many things go through your mind. Look, he's 22 years old. How can this happen? He's the fittest he's ever been in his entire life. He just got out of basic training. what is going on? That's everything going through my mind. And I told the doctor at that point in time, I said, okay, listen, let Michael know that I'm going to catch the next flight out. I'm going to get online right now and get a ticket, and I'll be out there just as soon as I can. And he stopped me. He said, ma'am, you don't understand what I'm saying. Your son has suffered a heart attack. We are performing CPR on him as we speak. I was in disbelief. Even saying it right now, I'm in disbelief. I just can't believe that a 22-year-old could have a heart attack.
Yeah.
And so I asked him, I said, sir, are you telling me my boy's going to die? And he told me to pray. And during this conversation with him, he's asking me, they need to know, is there something that has happened in his past? Is he taking anything? And so I'm trying to think, what was he doing when he was here? The only thing that he did was he started taking a supplement.
What activity was he doing? Because again, having a heart attack in your early 20s is extremely rare. What was he doing that either got his heart rate up, or, was he doing an activity, or was it something he was doing when he was sleeping? Tell us more about that.
So he had, it was the first day that he met his teammates.
Okay.
And so they had gone out, they were doing physical training. So it was very early in the morning. It was maybe almost 70 degrees outside, and they were on a mild 3.5 mile run. And in between, they would do intervals of, little exercises, but nothing that he wasn't already used to. Even when he came home from basic training, he would put a weight pack on, and him and Cody would go running. So it wasn't like he wasn't fit, and he wasn't doing anything that he hadn't been doing for months already, with basic training and coming home and running and working out, keeping up with all of that.
Yeah. Probably the fittest he's ever been in his entire life. And you had mentioned he started taking a supplement, and I'm want to talk with you more about that, because that's something we talk to young people and their adult influencers about all across America in every single program we do, because many people don't realize there is a large lack of regulation in the dietary supplement industry. And we've got multiple podcasts that we've done on the topics. But it's something that parents really need to listen to, especially your story, because here's Michael, joined the military, super fit, really young, should not be having any issues with his heart, but he's taking this dietary supplement. Can you talk more about the supplement he was taking and how that relates to the heart attack that he ultimately had?
So let me take a step back and talk to you about why Michael was taking a supplement.
Perfect.
So Michael, out of the 3 boys, was the smallest. So when he left to the military, he was about 5'11", and he weighed wet about 145 pounds. So the other boys, of course, were much larger, not only in height, but also in stature. And he wanted to be bigger. He wanted to be the best soldier he could possibly be. When he tested for the military, he could pretty much choose anything that he wanted to do, but he decided he wanted to go to infantry. He wanted to be on the front lines. And so what that meant to him was he had to be the very best soldier he could possibly be. And talking with some of his buddies, one of them had suggested that he start taking a supplement to kind of help bulk him up a little bit. And when he came home from basic training, because they're not even allowed in basic training to have coffee.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
And so when he came, he wasn't able to do anything. He was happy because he was smaller, and so he was able to eat anything and have extras of everything that he wanted, where some of the other guys who, had to lose a little weight couldn't do that. So he comes home, and we're in the kitchen. I'm cooking dinner, minding my own business, and he goes, "Mama, look at my muscles. And he's kind of flexing his shoulders a little bit. And right away, I said, Mike, are you taking steroids? He goes, no, Mom. No, I got this from GNC, and it's kind of helping me, get bigger, do more reps. And so I'm looking at the can, and I'm like, so you got this at GNC? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And I continued cooking, because immediately when he said GNC, I immediately thought, oh, okay, well then it's safe, because he bought it from GNC, and everybody knows anything you buy at GNC is safe.
Yeah.
That was my reaction to it. And, looking back, of course that wasn't the case, but it's just so crazy to me to think that I held such a high regard for a company like GNC, thinking that they would never sell anything that was not safe.
You're like 99.9% of the parents out there that feel the same way. And when we come in and we do a program and they're asking, well, I mean, they're getting it at the local store, they're ordering online. There's no possible way that if we can walk into a store and purchase this product, that it could be remotely dangerous. And, and herein lies the importance of education and sharing Michael's story. So he's taking this product and, I'm very familiar with the product, and I don't know how much you can tell us about the product, but I know it's designed obviously to increase your heart rate and core temperature, prior to working out, which can be very, very dangerous. And, those are tied in today. Again, one of the most popular dietary supplements is a pre-workout and even the energy drinks, which by the time this podcast airs, we'll have one specifically on energy drinks and what they are actually doing to the heart. Can you talk more about the product he was taking? And did you see any behavioral changes with this product? I mean, obviously he came to you and said, Mom, it's working, it's great. And I'd never forget, my mom would tell the same story if she was on this podcast about my brother when he was using steroids, was, Mom, look, I'm all buff, I'm getting all this muscle, I look and I feel great. And as a parent, you're like, cool. I mean, that's wonderful. You're working out, you're doing these things, but never in your mind until something like tragic happens that the gears begin to turn and say, wow, maybe I should be asking more about this product and what's in that product. And is it even safe?
Right. So the product that Mike was taking was called Jack 3D, or Jacked. And the ingredient in there, which is DMAA, and there's a longer word for that, and I'm sure you can probably say it better than I can. But it was an amphetamine derivative. So it was marketed in sports performance and also weight loss products in order to help them achieve what they're looking for. With the DMAA, I just remember Michael saying it just gave him that little extra push. So when your body gets to the end of what it can handle, it gives you that sense that you can push it just a little bit more. And, with Michael's story, I tell him, yes, he had a heart attack. Yes, he had a heat stroke. The chemical DMAA was literally burning him from the inside out. Now, when they noticed that Michael was having an emergency, they wrapped him in ice immediately. They got him into an air-conditioned room, wrapped him in ice. His body core temperature when he got to the hospital was still 105.5. They couldn't get it down. They couldn't get it. Everything they were doing, they couldn't get his temperature down. Well, it's because the chemical wasn't allowing that to happen. And so I tell people that, yes, it caused him to have a heart attack, but it was literally burning him from the inside out.
And I do know that the U.S. Department of Defense has since banned on-base sale of any DMAA products. DMAA is actually, banned in these various products. And I'm going to put a link to It's dimethyl. I'm gonna butcher it if I try to say it, but I will put the full term in the show notes for people to read, and they can kind of do some more investigation as to what it is and what they can be looking for on products. Because Leanne, from what I understand, and some of the products that have been tested, it's still getting snuck into some of these products in different forms or fashions, which is really scary and sad to think about.
Yes.
So is that ultimately what the military found out had, I guess, caused this heart attack? I mean, he's out on a run. He's taken something that's going to increase his heart rate and core temperature. And I've talked to tons of kids, Lee, and it's really sad. Even today, in fact, I was just doing a program recently at a college where a young man had said when he was in high school, he was taking a pre-workout supplement and had sort of the same feelings where he had to lay down. He was profusely sweating. They thought they were going to have to call an ambulance. And finally it passed. But even scarier, one of the times we had shared Michael's story in our program, we had a middle school student, I believe it was an 8th grader, that came up afterwards and was talking about how their parents, I believe it was her dad, that would give her a couple sips of his pre-workout on the way to the gym every evening. And she's like, it makes my heart feel like it's leaping out of my chest. Is that bad? And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, how do you explain that to an 8th grader to go home and tell our parents, like, you need to knock it off? But it's also hard to blame the parents because they don't know any differently. They don't know that these could be potentially dangerous. That they don't know that the majority of dietary supplements on the market and their ingredients have never been studied on anybody under the age of 18. So it could be very detrimental, just like in Michael's case.
Right. Yeah, I've spoken to several parents that have reached out to me over the years, and they don't know. They have no idea, just like I didn't. I mean, again, you hear the word GNC, you think safety. That they couldn't sell anything that wasn't. We have, and God bless the parents, but we have parents that are actually going into these stores and buying the products for their kids because their kids want to beat out that competitor, not knowing what is happening. And there was a day that I went into GNC, and, we have a lot of teens that are also overweight. And so they want to take things that could possibly help that as well. And I went into GNC with a reporter, and there was a young gentleman there, maybe 18 years of age. And I said, I'm a heavyset woman, and I've been really trying to lose weight. And I was told of a supplement called, I think it was I think it's Jack 3D. And he goes, oh yeah, that is our #1 seller. Come on over here, I'll show it to you. And so he showed me the Jack 3D, and I said, so, this could really help me lose weight. And he said, you know what would really help you lose weight? And I said, what? And he said, if you take Jack 3D and then you stack it with Oxy Elite Pro, you will lose weight like that. And I said, so what do? You put it together in a drink and then drink it? He goes, yeah. And then you go do your workout, and, you will really start seeing a difference. So they're out there telling the parents and telling these kids not only to take this product, but stack it with this product or that product to help them get to wherever they want to be. And parents are relying on that person selling that product to have some type of schooling. And what they're saying is true, and that it is safe. You're and right. That's the scary part to me.
Very scary. And it's still going on today. And especially since COVID and lockdowns and people ordering products online, the ease of access to these products is mind-blowing. And again, thank you for continuing to share your story, because there are so many people that are going to listen to this podcast that are now their antennas are going to be up. And, they're obviously going to be concerned because their attention is completely on your story right now. But as a parent, what would you like to say to other parents who are listening, who have a child that comes to them about taking any sort of dietary supplement? What recommendation would you have for them?
Well, one, to do your research. If they are looking at a product that says it's natural, odds are it's not.
Yeah.
The one thing that I've been sharing with people is to make sure that it is third-party certified. If it's not third-party certified, then how do you really know what is in that product? I was working with a scientist with the Army, and we're good friends now, and we talk about things like this. And, you know, they were finding rat poison, prescription drugs, and just fillers in whey protein. Tell you a quick story. I went toe to toe with a gentleman at Walmart because I was passing by and overheard him tell this young middle school child what supplements to take to start beefing up. I lost it. And I said, I'm sorry for interrupting, and I just let him have it. And, I told the parent, I said, before you believe somebody that you just met at Walmart, do your research. Make sure it's third-party certified. Does this have a third-party certification? And the guy goes, well, no. I said, then how do you know what's in it? He goes, because I know. I said, no, you don't. Did you make it? I'm finding that's what we have to do, because to me, there's we always have to worry about predators with our children. I never thought I'd have to worry about a predator trying to sell them supplements that could harm them.
Especially somebody that has, and especially somebody that has no knowledge of the product itself, or, they weren't part of the formulation of the product, just like you said. I mean, it's a great question. Were you there helping manufacture the product? No, you weren't. So you really have no idea what's in that product. And we're trusting the manufacturer basically with our health or our child's health as to what is and is not in that product. And you continue to mention the third-party certification, which is so important. And I will place all of these notes into the show notes here. But to talk about third-party certification, there's an organization we're partnered with. And in episode 16 of the All Me podcast, we interview Brian Jordan from NSF Certified for Sport, which is the gold standard when it comes to third-party certification. And essentially, Leanne, what you're talking about is you now have a third party, which is also a nonprofit organization, that are testing these products. They look at the laboratories and they look at the facilities that they're made to ensure, one, that they're clean. They look and see what raw materials are being put in, and to ensure that every ingredient on that label is actually in there. And then if they get the NSF Certified for Sport stamp, it has also been tested for over 270 banned substances, which is why it's so important. And people ask us all the time, Lane, as you can imagine, what products would you recommend if I'm taking this? And is it one, I'd always recommend first talking with your family physician, hiring a sports dietitian to talk about your diet and what your physical goals are. But lastly, if you are going to take a product, please be sure you download the NSF Certified for Sport app, that you are doing your due diligence to make sure that it is certified, that you're old enough to be taking that product, and that you're using that product correctly.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I tell everybody about the NSF for sure, because I trust them. And, people will ask me all the time, well, what do you suggest on taking? And I said, I don't suggest anything. I think you need to talk to a nutritionist, and food is always best. But when you feel like you absolutely have to take a supplement, make sure that it's NSF certified, make sure you do your research, and they will ask me, well, where can I find out more information? And I'll tell you, the first one that I tell them to go to, Dawn, is Taylor Hooten Foundation. I would tell them to go there, research it. I said Michael's stories on their website. And secondly, I tell them to go to Operation Supplement Safety. They also have a list of banned items that the military can't use. So my thinking is, if they don't allow the military to use it, then why would I allow my child to use it?
And I'm so glad you mentioned Operation Supplement Safety, because if anybody follows us on social media, we love sharing their content. In fact, we did an entire episode with Dr. Patty Doyster and Andrea Lindsay over there, who are so passionate about learning more about these products, that everything that they post has been scientifically researched before they put any of that information out there. And it's so important for the soldiers, for really the national security of our armed forces, to ensure that when they're overseas or they're here at home training, battle, whatever the case might be, that they are putting things in their body that aren't going to cause it harm, especially in a time of war. I mean, that's the last thing you want is, to send your soldiers out for battle and one of them gets sick or suffers a heart attack or potentially could lose their life, not as a result of combat, but as a result of a product that they're putting in their body.
Right.
So one of the things I am happy to talk about, though, Leanne, and I don't know how much you could share about this, but USP Labs was the company that was actually manufacturing Jack. They also manufactured OxyElite Pro, which was tied to cases of hepatitis and death as well.
Mm-hmm.
Were they aware that Michael was taking, like the military, were they aware like of any medication or products that he was taking at the time? Like, do you have to fill out some sort of medical form saying, hey, when you go to the doctor, they're like, hey, what prescriptions are you taking, or vitamins, that sort of thing?
I'm sorry, are you asking if the military was asking?
Yeah, both the military
Michael was taken?
Yeah. When the military asked, did they ever find out he was taking this product, Jack, from USP Labs?
Yes. So when they had called me, they asked me what he'd been taking, and I had told them that the only thing that he was taking was the supplement called Jack.
Okay.
And it was proven in all of his lab works. The only thing they found was the DMAA and caffeine. There was nothing else in his system.
Okay. Have you ever reached out to USP Labs, or are you even able to talk with them about this? Or, I know since that, they've had a lot of legal issues and they've been shut down.
Yes, they have been shut down. We, Christopher, my youngest son, Chris, and I went to Dallas in October of 2020 for the sentencing of the makers or the owners of USP Labs. So basically what happened was they pled guilty in introducing misbranded foods and, basically misleading the public of selling a natural product when it was not natural. So they were saying that DMAA was derived from a geranium plant. Well, it was proven that you cannot get enough of this product out of a plant to even make one product of Jacked or anything versus, let alone any of the other things that they put this in. So they did plead guilty. They were sentenced to federal prison. Jacoba Geisler, he received 5 years in a federal prison. The other ones, they received a couple of years. I was there with Jonathan Doyle. He received 2 years. Jacoba will be released in September of 2025. Jonathan Doyle will be released in September of 2022. Some of the other defendants will be released, a couple of them this year, another one in 2024 for being involved in all of that. So, they're doing their time. They can't produce supplements anymore. Good. I truly feel that Jonathan Doyle will never do this again, but the rest of them, we'll see him again. We'll see him back out there doing it as soon as they can.
Well, we need to continue working together to, share Michael's story, to share Taylor's story, but just to get this information out to parents and loved ones worldwide, that when it comes to purchasing dietary supplements, you have to be very careful. And I'm so proud to know you and your family and the strength and courage that you've had to take this on, because it's not easy. I know it's not easy. And it's basically, a little person going up this big giant company. And there's hundreds of them, Leanne, as you know, that are putting questionable products on the market that could be very potentially dangerous to us and our loved ones. And I know you vowed, to find out what happened with Michael and to share his story with others. And I wanted to thank you and your family for sharing his story that has really been shared around the world. And the video that you've produced from us, we show in every single education program that we're doing. But knowing what you know now about the dangers of these dietary supplements, what is one message you would like to share with all the listeners?
To do your research, that you do not need supplements to make you better. Get a hold of a nutritionist, set up, eating habits, because I know, as a family, we live in such a fast-paced world that we're constantly eating unhealthy. And if we just started eating healthy, we would get everything that we needed and not need to take the supplement in order to get bigger or stronger, because it's fake. It's not real. And it only lasts for so long. And are you willing to take that chance? Are you willing to drink that drink this morning knowing that maybe in 10, 20, 30 minutes, you could die. Your child could die. I mean, the worst thing a parent ever does is to have to bury their child. You know, your parents know it. You lost your brother. It's not anything that I would wish on even my worst enemy. Just do your research and don't give in to peer pressure. That is another issue. Don't give in to peer pressure of taking a supplement that could actually harm you. You know, we teach our kids, don't give in to peer pressure for taking drugs, you know, illicit drugs. But we have to start educating them about the dangers of supplements. I mean, what is in it?
Exactly.
You know, unless you make it yourself, you don't know.
Exactly. And Leanne, this has been such a wonderful conversation, especially with your recommendation to find a nutritionist or a sports dietitian. I will work with the sports dietitian on the Taylor Hooten Foundation staff, one of our All Me podcast hosts, Tavis Piatoli, to figure out a list that I can put in the show notes. If you have specific questions about finding a nutritionist or a sports dietitian in your area, please feel free to reach out to us on our website. But Leanne, before I let you go, if you are an All Me podcast listener, you know that we have a section of questions called our curveball questions. They're a lot of fun, not related to the topic that we discussed, but it's always a lot of fun to end on some really fun questions. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and just as quick as you can answer them, the first thing that comes to your mind, go ahead and spout it out. Does that sound good?
Oh, Lord. Okay.
Okay. First question is, what is your most used emoji?
Smiley face.
The smiley face. Okay. So if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be? And this is just for a year.
Oh, only for a year?
Just for a
Texas.
year. Texas. All right. Well, come on down. We're always looking for new folks. And then last question. Would you rather have invincibility or be able to fly?
Oh, invincibility.
I was kind of on.
I don't like flying.
Oh, okay. You don't like flying. So I was like, I think it would be kind of cool to be in flight, but also sometimes while I love interacting with people, it would just be nice to kind of be there, but nobody could see me and I could just kind of be part of the conversation, if you will.
Yes.
Well, Leanne, again, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed talking to you. It's always good catching up. Thank you again for you and your family sharing Michael's story and getting the word out. And I know this interview and your story has impacted lives and will continue to impact lives. And if parents can just start asking more questions, and like you said, repeatedly throughout the podcast, please do your research. But thank you again for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's it for today's show. Thanks for listening to the All Me podcast from the Taylor Hooten Foundation, a nonprofit organization leading a national campaign to enlighten people to the truths about appearance and performance-enhancing substances and inspiring people to live and compete without the use of these substances. Please be sure to subscribe to our podcast and tune in to our next episode.